All right, so what we're doing today is we are graphing, guys. We are graphing in intercept form today. Okay, so but before I show you how to graph in intercept form, I got a few things that I want to tell you. By the way, while you're copying that title, put your thinking caps on. Remember the review unit that we did at the very beginning? Not your literal hat. Thank you. Where we were doing things that looked, we were graphing lines in this form. What was that form called? Standard form. In order to graph it, what did you do? Somebody said cover up. Somebody said find the intercepts, plug it in. Let me ask you this, because a lot of you remember cover up and you know what that means. When you're finding the x-intercept, you're plugging what in for which variable? Absolutely. 0 in for y. To find the x-intercept, I make y equals 0 and solve it, right? To find the y-intercept, we plug 0 in for x, yes? We're going to take this concept and expand it and apply it to quadratics. Are y'all ready for this, Cassidy?
Let me write the rest of this down so I can be with you.
Put that away, please.
I'm trying to leave.
I'm
trying to leave off of that tab.
All right. I want you to think about something with me for a minute. You've had some things that look like this, and I have asked you to solve them for x. You have also had something that looks like this, and you have graphed it. With your A, your B, and your C, remember we found the vertex, we found an easy point, we reflected and connected. When you solved this, what did you do? Or what do you do? Thank you, just took a quiz on it Friday. You factor it. And I told you what to do on Friday, but I'm trying to get you to the point where I don't have to tell you what to do, that you can figure out. I box it or factor it, right? And I do that because when I factor it, what multiplies to 6x squared but adds to 5x? 2 and 3. Greatest common factor? 1 what? Greatest common factor? 3. Greatest common factor? Greatest common factor? 2. So this factors as, do we all agree? Don't lose sight of the fact that we have graphed this before to look like a parabola, yes? A parabola. If I solve that equation on the left, the x plus 3x plus 2, what do I do?
Make them both equal to 0.
Yep. Now there's a couple of connections that I want you to make here. Well, you should get 0 if you plug them in, because y equals 0 there. Watch what happens here. I want you to see two things. First of all, I want you to see that if I graphed this parabola, what I have done here is replace the y with a 0. And what happens when you put 0 in for y? You have found what? X-intercepts. So this -2 and -3 would be the x-intercepts. Does that make sense to you? Because I plugged in 0 for y and solved. Just like with a line, it's the same concept, only now I'm talking about a quadratic. But it's still the same thing. The second thing I want you to notice is If you have it in factored form, okay, look at the signs here. What do you notice about them?
They're different.
They're different. They're opposites, okay? Those are the two things, because if you understand that, then when we graph in this form, it's going to make so much more sense.
What did you say that negative 2 were all together?
If I have x plus 3, x plus 2, the zeros are just the opposite sign of this number that's in here.
What did you say they were?
So,
X-intercepts. Place where they cross the x-axis.
okay, so I get the exercise behind the left.
Yeah.
Why did they flip? Why did they go negative?
Because, and I wanted you to see why they did. Remember we said if you got two things multiplied together to give you 0, one or both of them is 0. So either x plus 3 is 0 or x plus 2 is 0. So when you solve that for x, you have to subtract 3 or subtract 2, and it flips the sign down.
So what you do to get it to the other side is what we're doing.
Yes. Yeah. Does that make sense, everybody?
So
All right.
that's the answer.
Those are the intercepts, which is what we're going to use to graph. It's confusing now, but just wait, because when you see this form to graph in, you're going to go,
And then the grass, so the grass to follow.
You say that.
Wait, so
It's
is
like,
y
it's all
always
really
gonna
I'm telling you,
Zero.
standard form is the hardest to graph in. The other two forms after that are not as bad.
They're cool, so.
Just because you had to calculate to find the vertex, you had to calculate to find the easy point. Ask me, Liz.
Is y always gonna be 0?
To find the x-intercepts, yes.
Say that again.
So,
One more time.
If you're finding the x-intercepts, yes, y is always 0.
so if you're finding the y intercept,
Correct. X will be 0. All right. I tell you all this to give you a step sheet, but hopefully this is going to help concrete the information and give you some connections to draw from. So, you have this on the worksheet, not worksheet, but the notes, the guided notes that Nyesha came around and gave you. In your notes, when we graphed in standard form, you should have a step sheet somewhere in there that says how to graph in standard form. Now you're going to have one that says how to graph in intercept form. I would recommend you write this one down as well as have that reference sheet, but that's obviously up to you. Something about rewriting something concretes it in your head sometimes. I would, yeah. Just like before, I'm going to have steps, an example. Actually, before you do this, let me show you something first, before you do that. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. We're going to come back to that. You can go ahead and set it up if you want to. Let me show you the general form first. Don't get intimidated by the variables in this. Because whenever I gave you the other form, ax squared plus bx plus c, you were a bit intimidated by that. Okay? Don't be intimidated by this. Your a is exactly the same as it was before. Tell me what a in front always told you. But what did it we could tell a lot from the a. Up or down? Remember, if it was negative in front, the parabola opened down. If it was positive in front, it opened up. What else did it tell us? It told us one other thing. Yeah. What did it tell us? This is called intercept form. What else did it tell us? A. Whenever we were in standard form, what did A tell us? Good job, Preston. How big it was going to be. If it was going to be skinny or wide, remember? The bigger A got, the skinnier the graph got. Like the bow and arrow Jason told us about. That is correct. Tell him the analogy again.
All right, it's like you're shooting a longbow. You take it, you pull the string back, the two ends get closer and closer together. You push it in, it gets further and further apart.
Well, I don't know how to work a bow and arrow, so
it doesn't.
I don't understand.
Yes, it does.
He's talking about the ends of the bow and arrow, the ends of the bow itself.
I like. Yeah, you're right. They come on the arrow.
All right. Tell me this without knowing anything else about this equation and looking at this. Tell me what you think the x-intercepts are and give it to me in terms of a variable. Look at this. Look at the one we just did where we solved. It was x plus 2, x plus 3. What do you think the x-intercepts are? Yes. Good job. The P and the Q are the x-intercepts, but you have to change the sign. Remember how whenever we solved, the signs changed on them around? You have to change those, but those are the intercepts, okay? So remember, how many points do we need to graph a parabola? 3. One of those 3 points has to be the change the sign. You're not going to work it that way. You're just going to pull the number out from the equation. So if this was y equals 1/2 x plus 3 x minus 1, your x-intercepts would be -3, +1. This is an easy form because you literally look at it and pull the information from it. This is probably the one that requires the least amount of math with it. I showed you all that before because I wanted you to understand why the sign was opposite and what was happening and how we were finding the zeros, but okay.
So if you do the city equation, like the first one you did,
Yes.
plus 5 equals 6, you give us that, and the answer we get out of that was to be the x equals 0, the x equals 2. So we was going to
Yes.
you plug that into the equation, like
Same sign. Same. You keep it the same as where you changed. But you're not going to plug that back in because if you plug that back in, you should get 0 when you plug it back in. So you won't be plugging those back in. You're overthinking it.
You know how the A, you said something about like it needs to be your letter depending on, what, okay. Like for the example you read on why the half,
Yeah.
would it be something or why?
That's a wider one because the smaller the number gets from 1, the wider it starts expanding. Yes, tough. These here, you literally change these signs on the inside.
What's this formula called?
To show you that A could be anything, this is called intercept form. A could be anything at all. Now tell me if A is missing, what is A going to be? You're multiplying.
Is that G?
Would we put the line in front of it?
Huh?
No, you don't have to.
That's a Q?
Yeah, it's a Q. Q, Jason, Q.
Fuck you.
All right. I'm glad y'all are asking all these questions and really trying to wrap your minds around it because that's the thing. Think what else I was going to tell you. Oh, you told me you needed 3 points to graph. One of those 3 points has to be what? Starts with a V.
Vertex.
The vertex. Well, look at what I already have. Without doing any math, without doing anything else, I already have 2 points. So I'm only going to need 1 more. Let's graph it. Let's do it. All right, I'm going to run you an example.
Wait, I thought we were doing this.
hold on, no.
We are.
Okay, I think I got it.
Okay.
Let me ask this question. If you gave us the starting equation, given equation,
Yes.
x squared,
What form am I giving it to you in? Am I giving it to you in standard form or am I giving it to you in intercept form?
this is in the intercept,
Yes.
and the one you gave the equation was standard,
Correct.
right? That's where
Okay, but now it's a good question because once we get good with intercepts form, I'm going to have you changing the form from standard to intercept.
When people ask questions,
Okay, so
So you would take a standard form, factor it, and then it would be in. That's all intercept is. Intercept is simply the factored form of a standard form equation. If you were to put your equation in the box, you would get that intercept form.
So in other words, seriously, what?
There's a cat in here.
But everybody said that. Must be something somebody ate.
So, like, okay, so if you wanted us to take the out of standard form and put it in intercept.
All right. First thing we want to do is we want to take the information that we're given, okay? Always use what you're given. What am I given when I'm in intercept form? But what is it called? Intercepts. In intercept form, I'm given the intercept. So the first thing I want to do is find and plot the intercepts. Now remember that's P and that's Q. Change the signs on them though.
Why are you changing?
Remember how whenever we set each piece equal to 0 and solved it?
Yeah.
If I set it equal to 0 and solved it, it would change the sign on it. So in my example on the right, what are my x-intercepts?
1 and -3.
Good job, y'all. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
I'll give you a second to copy that and then I'm on. Let's flip over and let's plot those 2 points. I'm trying to clear it. There we go. What were they? 1 and -3 or -1? Negative, what was it?
1 and -1.
1. All right, here's the part where you're going to have to use your brain for a minute. Oh, everybody's got a brain. Sure. Yeah, yeah. All right, think about this with me for just a minute. You got to think about what you know about quadratics, and this will make a lot of sense. A parabola is symmetrical, yes?
Yeah.
So if I've got both of these 2 points, you've already told me I need 3 points to graph a parabola. What point am I missing here?
Vertex.
The vertex. The vertex happens where?
The highest or lowest point.
The highest or lowest point. How about in relationship to 2 points right across from each other?
Middle.
The middle of them. So now the question is, how do you find the middle of 2 points? Okay, let's say you couldn't count because they were fractions or something.
You can still count fractions.
Okay, but let's give a mathematical way to find the
by
middle of
2.
2 numbers.
You could take average of them and divide by 2.
Absolutely, you can average them together, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's the midpoint formula, but since one of them's 0, I'm just adding and dividing by 2.
Wait, that's called something. What is it called? Is it
Averaging.
the range or something like that?
The average is just averaging. All right. It's half of the midpoint formula, actually. All right, shh. Guys. All right, so here's what we're going to do, because the only thing we have left to do is find the vertex. To find the vertex, the first thing we're going to do is average the intercepts. Now, I'm still keeping the opposite sign whenever I do this, because that's where they're plotted on the graph. So whenever I come over here, x equals 1 plus -3 divided by 2, which is what? -2/2. Some of you are already saying it's -1. Now that's not my vertex. That's a half of my vertex. That's where the what occurs. The line of symmetry. Absolutely. On my graph at -1, that's my line of symmetry, okay? Now, think back to when you were in standard form. You had to do opposite b over 2a. How did you find the other half of your vertex? You plugged it in. I'm going to plug this in to find it.
Into the original equation?
Original equation. The green, yep, the green one at top. Well, it's still part of step 2. So I got 2 times -1 minus 1 and -1 plus 3. Always do your parentheses first. This is -2 and this is +2. What does that equal? What's 2 times -2 times 2? -8. So this point, this vertex, is -1. That's just the second half of the second step.
So then we just plot.
That's it, though, that's it.
1, 8.
They want -8.
You got there for me.
Sure. Tell me when you're done.
So the plug in to find y, you just put.
This vertex is -1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now can you see the parabola? Does that make sense? Yes. This is worked out step by step on that sheet for you. But we're going to work out the second example together and then one other. Girls. Yeah. Yes. This is the second example on your paper, so if you'll work it out on there. Now, because I am multiplying here, it looks like I'm missing a set of parentheses. Do you agree that I could rewrite this way?
Yeah.
Okay, so what am I missing in this equation? The P, right? What can I put in for P when it's missing? 0. Is it negative? Sorry. I'm so glad you didn't say -0. Someone last block went, it's -0.
0.
No, sweetie, no, it's not -0.
0 is.
Good try, though. I appreciate you changing the signs for me.
It could be negative.
All right. No,
I mean, -0 and +0 is negative.
there's no negative, positive, 0, 0, 0, 0. It's neither positive nor negative. Okay. As I look at this equation, my first step is to find and plot the x-intercepts. The x-intercepts in this case would be what?
0, -1.
Change that sign. 0, 1. Yes?
Yes.
All right. 0. I'm making some big spaces. I told them last block you might want to count by like halves on your graph paper there on this one I put for you because it's, yeah.
Why do you negative on the 1?
You change the sign when you take the,
How do you know what to take some?
when you're finding the intercepts, if it's in parentheses like that, we're changing the sign on it. All right, all I need is the what? Starts with a V.
Vertex.
Vertex. To find the vertex, I do what to the intercepts? Exactly. You're averaging them together, right? So I'm gonna come over here and say vertex.
On your graph, is that 1 point?
2.
What? No, like,
Oh, if you're on yours, I went by a half for each tick mark.
Like make 2 blocks, 1 block.
Yes, make 2 blocks, 1 block. All right. Average them together. 0 plus 1 divided by 2 is... Now, obviously, I put this one on here because fractions, y'all tend to look at fractions and go, oh my gosh! All right. Plug it in to find y. I'm going to plug back in this original equation just in case I made some mistake here. I'm going to go back to what I started with. 2 times 1/2. 1/2 minus 1.
We ever do
So you
that
mean
on a
negative
calculator?
Yes.
Okay.
Negative 2 times 1/2 is negative 1. This is negative 1/2. What is negative 1 times negative 1/2? 1/2. So 1/2, 1/2. So up 1/2. Do you see how much easier this form is? The only math I'm doing is to find the vertex. Other than that, I'm pulling the information from the problem. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. So it's just.
Let's do another example. One more before I give you something to try on your own.
So you said make 2 boxes, 1 box?
That's what I did on yours. You can do however you like. It doesn't matter. Matthew, are you starting to see what I was talking about? How from standard to vertex, standard to intercept?
Alright, so how many boxes up are you on? 1?
Yes.
You ain't looking at this.
Focus, guys.
Yeah.
Look at this one. Before we start, tell me what is my A?
It's negative 1.
Negative 1 because the negative in front. So that tells me right off the bat it's going to open down, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
What are my x-intercepts?
-1 and 5.
Cassie, you got this going on. -1 and 5. Does that confuse anybody? Is anybody confused on plotting the intercepts? Okay. I only need one more point. That one more point is the vertex. How do I find the vertex?
C minus P.
Average the two together. Yep. So I do x equals -1. Does that confuse anybody?
Wait, so this is also opposite.
Correct. Yes. Plug it back in, absolutely. I was in a thought on if we were having classwork or homework or both while you were. I thought y'all were still copying. All right.
Neither. We got like 3 minutes there long enough.
That has nothing to do with classwork.
Yeah, well, we won't get out of here until like 9 o'clock.
What does that have to do with classwork?
We won't know how to do it yet. We need more practice before we have classwork.
What are you talking about? Classwork is practice. All right, 2-9 is my vertex. Shh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm losing the attention of some of you. Tell me how you feel about intercept form. You like it? What part? Graph part?